Meat City, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with another video in the Banner Saga. We are continuing our hard difficulty playthrough of the Banner Saga, and in this episode we are tackling Chapter 4. So, we switch back now to Rook and the human caravan, and we are picking up right where we left off in the Frostveller city. And there were two ways you could have approached the end of the chapter. You could have tried to fight your way or sneak your way into the city and stay inside the city until the end of the chapter, or you could have camped outside the walls and waited patiently. Regardless of which option you ended up taking, there's going to be a chance early on in the chapter. There's going to be some fights, and again, you want to engage in those fights because you need the renown. If you camped outside the walls, I think there's up to 3 fights, and the third one you won't have either, so hopefully you've got some other characters that you've been working on that you have strong enough to have this fight, because if you get through all 3 of them, you'll get a pretty good item. If you're inside the city, you'll also have some battles, and regardless, you'll also have the opportunity for some supplies, but whether it's those supplies or whether you're outside the city, if you get approached by a character named Onith, tell him to go away. Do not accept his offer to join you. It is maybe the worst thing that you can do in the entire Banner Saga playthrough. It will result in character deaths and a big attack later on, and it'll just mess up everything that you're trying to accomplish. So don't do that. There is one way that you can avoid him even asking. If you, in chapter 2, if you ambush a supply cart to get into the city, and then use that as a disguise to get into the city, that supply cart actually turned out to have Onith in it, so you killed him without even knowing it before he was introduced when you did that. But if you did anything else to either get into the city or to stay out of the city, then Onith will pop up and you'll have the opportunity to let him join you. Again, do not do it. So, unlike the Varl caravan, which again we got to really experience and dive into in a deep way in the previous chapter, right? We did tons of battles with them. That caravan has an abundance of supplies. You're never really worried about having enough supplies. You don't really have to buy supplies. You don't have to worry about keeping them fed. They have a ton from the start, and it's enough to carry them through. The human caravan, having enough supplies is a constant battle, and so much so that you really have to make some tough decisions, right? There's a number of achievements in this game that are contradictory, that play against each other. There's one to make it through the whole game with no one starving. Well, these are the ones that you have to worry about starving because supplies run very low. You have to make it through the whole game without morale ever dipping low, right? And running out of food can be one of the ways that happens, but also marching too fast can be one of the ways that happens. Oh, by the way, there's also an achievement for getting to the last city in the game by a certain time. So guess what? You're marching really fast, and your morale is going to drop in that playthrough. So again, all these competing interests, but for the hard mode playthrough, we're trying to limit that. Again, I attempted to also keep the morale from ever dropping low in this playthrough, which proved to be a bridge too far. But when you're going for just your normal, your hard playthrough, right, don't lose a battle, and also get 6 characters up to level 5 so that you can use them in a training fight. Don't worry so much about the other stuff. But you still need to keep your caravan fed so you can keep morale up, because that will give you a bonus going into all the battles. You'll have extra willpower stars available to use. So you need some supplies, and supplies are in short supply for this caravan. So you want to buy some at the beginning here, because this whole chapter is basically, it's less fighting than the previous chapter, but there's still battles. And it's basically long treks. You are at a city, you start at one here, and then you have a long trek to the next village. And I didn't have the days memorized, but it can be, I think, up to 12 days, I think, to get to the next village. And so if you only have enough supplies for 7 days, you're gonna run out, and you're gonna have 5 days of no food, which will be pretty brutal for your caravan. So you want to buy some supplies when you can, when the prices are good. There's going to be some towns along the way where the prices vary. You can get one set of supplies for 1 renown, right? That's the worst it can be, so try and avoid that. 3 for 1 is okay. Some spots you can do a 5 for 1 or a 6 for 1. I think there's even one that's like a 10 for 1. So any of those, when you see supplies and you have some renown, you get them. But remember, you also need the renown to level up your characters. So it is this very, very delicate balance. Only level up the important characters that you're going to use for that special training mission. And again, you're going to use a couple of characters. You're going to use Gunnulf, who will show up later. You're going to also then use a couple of these. Remember, you need a total of 6. You're going to be given 2 level 5 characters later, and you're going to use Gunnulf. So that's 3. So you need 3 more from this caravan. And that can be Rook, it can be Alette, it can be Ivor, it can be Oddleaf. That's 4. And I would pick one of Rook or Alette, the one who you think is going to remain your character for the rest of the trilogy, right? Focus on one of them, not the other, and then I like Oddleaf and Ivor. But again, Eggle is good if you want to go for him over Ivor. There's other options, but focus on 3, put all your level up and all your renown into them, and real easy on any of the others, because that investment is going to need to go elsewhere, into supplies. You don't have enough renown to level up everybody by any stretch of the imagination. So, other than that, this is a fairly standard chapter. I don't think there's any way you can lose any of the characters, again, barring that Onif situation. Don't take him onto your team, and then I think everybody that's in your caravan will make it through to the end of the chapter without them dying or leaving. There are battles, so make sure you're maximizing them. Again, the war mechanic comes up a couple times, so charge if you can. If you feel confident in your ability to do those battles, you'll get extra kills, you'll get extra renown. Do the second fight for the extra renown, so you can again keep leveling up your characters. And then at the end, you're going to get to a Varl city, and pay attention, because when you're doing that, there's one last encampment, and they'll kind of say, hey, you know, figure out what you want to do, because once we start across this big bridge, we can't stop. So when you leave that town, you will lose control of your party. You can't set up a camp. Normally you can kind of set up a camp at will. You hit a button, you're in camp. Morale dips, set up a camp and rest, and you can bump morale back up. You won't be able to do that once you leave that last encampment and start going across the bridge. So watch for that, and when you do that, rest up, get them to good morale, because it's going to drop at least 1, if not 2 levels, because you're going to have that forced march where you can't do any resting or anything like that. And then you'll arrive at the town, the big Varl city. There'll be some story and some dialogue and some battles to wrap up the chapter. So it's pretty straightforward. Focus your level up on those characters. Keep an eye on supplies. Buy them when they're a good value. Stock up early. Hopefully you brought some with you from the second chapter, the first time where you had this caravan, because every bit matters. There's some good choices and some bad choices that will help morale and supplies along the way. I picked most of the good ones along this playthrough. There might be 1 or 2 that you could make a better decision than I made, but see what I did, and you'll know if you do something similar, you'll get through it as well. So I should mention that at the very end of this chapter, remember, we're doing a hard difficulty playthrough, and one of the achievements is to do that and not lose a fight. There is a fight you have to lose. You will lose at the very end of this chapter. It's a one-on-one fight, Ivor going up against a big bad dredge, a red dredge. His name is Bellower. You will lose that fight, and you have to, and that's okay. It's part of the story. It will not void the achievement. So you will lose that battle, and don't worry about it. You'll still be eligible for the complete hard mode difficulty playthrough without any losses. That one is okay. Good luck with this playthrough, and thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.
Ronto was never the kind of place someone would build a town. Fittingly, the Vars living here aren't known for welcoming visitors with open arms. We approach a city that only Varl has seen and cross a bridge that only Varl could build. Let us hope that we are the only unwelcome visitors to pass.